I'm Gabe Lullo, and welcome to the Do Hard Things podcast. We're talking to go-to-market leaders and entrepreneurs who have conquered the challenges, the hustle, and the grind. Get ready for real talk, real insights, and no fluff.
But the hardest thing in the world right now is not actually closing deals, it's actually getting somebody's attention.
If you don't have that hook in that first 5 to 10 seconds, guess what? They're going to scroll to the next one.
You need to go in and you need to make it sound like yourself. That's the biggest piece of the puzzle. And I promise you, we can all tell.
The people that are trolls and the people that are haters never done the thing that you're doing.
I love doing this podcast because I get a front row seat to some of the greatest minds in sales.
Gone are the days of saying stay in your lane. When you're an executive leader and you're an enterprise-wide leader, there are no lanes. You've got to be partners.
Curiosity is like when the type of questions you ask is sometimes the value that you bring.
I need you to tell me when you're ready to buy or what you're ready to do. And I think it's changed so much into like adding more value. And if you're not doing that, then you're definitely going to come off as desperate.
High pressure selling is like a dinosaur tactic at this point.
No parent is like, oh, you should be a salesperson when you grow up, right? Everyone's like a doctor, lawyer, whatever crap. It's never salespeople.
It's not your job to motivate people. It's your job to find motivated people.
It's not cockiness. It's not arrogance. It's confidence knowing I know this and I know that I can help you.
From where I started to where I am today is all because I learned how to sell.
And there's too many people who have only been doing this for 5 freaking minutes. Sit down, close your mouth, actually go out there and get yourself beat up. Then come back and tell me if something is dead or not.
That is exactly why I started this podcast, because right there, that's the epitome of doing hard things.
Welcome back to the Do Hard Things podcast show with Gabe and Lexi. Today's guest is someone who truly embodies what Do Hard Things is all about. Jason Marc Campbell is the author of Selling with Love, Earn with Integrity, and Expand with Impact. He's spent years on the front lines of personal development growth and sales, helping entrepreneurs and mission-driven businesses sell in a way that just feels good. He interviewed over 300 thought leaders on his podcast with more than 2 million downloads. He's spoken on stages with icons like Gary Vaynerchuk and Lisa Nichols. But what truly sets Jason apart is his mission. He wants to teach companies to care more, to sell with intention, market with responsibility, and lead with purpose. Because business isn't just about profit, it's about making the planet better for everyone. He's a speaker, an educator, a podcast host, and a force of conscious capitalism. I'm excited to dig into his journey today. Jason, welcome to the show, man. I'm so excited you're here. Lexi and I cannot wait for this one. We've been waiting all week to do this show, and we're really appreciative of your time. But I'm going to just jump right in, man, because you have really, been a massive influencer with sales. I mean, your book is incredible, and what you stand for is incredible. And so most people, here's my question I ask everyone when we start a show is, most people don't dream of getting into sales when they're a kid, right? And so walk me through this approach that you're calling, selling with love. What's this origin story here? How did you go from launching this amazing personal growth, products that you have, and then having this voice with selling with love from where you started in life? How did you get to this point?
Yeah. What's the saying is nobody chooses to go to sales. They kind of end up in sales. But I've been the guy who most of his early 20s, people were saying, you're the guy who sells ice to Eskimos type thing. And that was like the stereotype people would say. And I've always had a nice relationship with sales. Like a lot of people would look at sales being like, oh, sales is manipulative. Sales is sleazy. I hate doing sales. That would be the typical noise I would hear on sales. And for me, I would always be excited. I'd say, I love selling. Sales is awesome. And people thought I was a little weird because of it. And if I think of origin story, I'll put a contrast with my story to what most people's story and introduction to a sales experience is, which is most people's first interaction with sales is maybe buying a used car and maybe not dealing with the most qualified salesperson, not someone who chose a career and grew their career in used car sales, maybe ended up there, not necessarily thriving there, would be your statistically higher chance encounters of a sales rep, might not be at the peak of their performance. And you start thinking that, oh, the way that I was sold there is what sales is, and you might have a negative association. You might have watched movies and media that portray salespeople in a certain way. You might have been just walking through the mall and seeing people just trying to get your attention. And I would say my generation most likely was trying to being sold into contracts for cell phones and realizing that you owe a lot of money to a lot of telecom companies. And then you're just like, God, I got pressured into it. It sucked. I hate it. And you start just painting a broad stroke with your brush around what sales is. And all you've been encountering were just very mediocre at best salespeople. And you might not have witnessed an incredible sales experience. And I'll contrast that to my story, which involves a girl. And I'm going in high school and we're doing a charity run for selling these chocolate covered almonds. I don't know if you guys have ever had to do this, but it was called the world's finest chocolate and it was used to sell chocolate and would raise money for charity. And so I decided to go sell those chocolate covered almonds. And I'm going door to door to my neighbors. And what was interesting to me is I'm knocking at my neighbor's door and I'm shy. I'm just this like 15-year-old kid. And I'm like, would you guys like some chocolates? They're pretty good. And the neighbors, I guess I'm from a small town, so they were relatively friendly. And they're like, oh, $2 chocolate bar. Why not? They buy it. They're happy. And I'm like, oh, that's a fun little anchor moment there. I'm like, I came and made an offer for some chocolate. We didn't care about health things back then, so we'll put that aside. And, I collected $1. It went to charity and they got the chocolate. They're happy. So, okay, fair exchange. This is fun. And just to turn up the emotion in the story and to really anchor it well, is I do that for a couple doors. And I think it's by the sixth or seventh door I knock at. The lady basically says, well, let me ask my daughter if she wants any chocolate. And lo and behold, lady comes down the stairs, beautiful girl. And I was at a French school. She was at an English school. So we didn't know each other. I'm like blown away. They buy the chocolate. I get a number and we ended up dating. And so that was one of my first girlfriends. So yeah, it's pretty standard that it ended up being selling with love when love and sales kind of got discovered at the same time. So that's usually my origin story. And from there, you can see that if I have that kind of story around sales, anytime I'm in a sales scenario, I'm not thinking I'm cringy. I'm not thinking I'm manipulative. I'm excited. I'm like, I know what's on the other side. People usually get happy when they get what they want. And when I have that kind of mindset, it just makes it so that sales is much less of a drag, much more exciting, and the results follow.
That's amazing. I love that story. That's awesome. Well, at the same time, we see sometimes not everything is perfect and you may experience challenges along the way. Was there ever a time where you hit a wall mentally or emotionally where you thought about walking away from sales? And if so, what brought you back?
So in my early 20s, I got really excited about wanting to make a lot of money, as most of us do. And I ended up signing up to this program, which cost tens of thousands of dollars on buying U.S. real estate as a Canadian. This is back in 2010, right? So a couple things were going down back there, lots of short sales, foreclosures. And so I bought into this program and I had mentor. I ended up going down to Florida and they started showing us some properties and they're telling us like, hey, start like this is the greatest opportunity, greatest program. You needed to buy the mentorship. So we got into it. They made us tour a bunch of homes and then we were putting offers on that because they brought along a cousin that was going to fund all the deals we were putting offers on. So like they had trained us. The cousin was going to fund all our deals. They were going to, they said, oh, we're going to bring a bunch of buyers that are going to buy these properties. You guys are going to do fantastic. And we're buying these incredible properties. We're having all these things lined up for us. We're like, this is the greatest program ever. And then they stuck us in a testimonial room to record us saying how amazing this program was. So we're buzzing. We had put offers on 100 properties at this point. And we're like, wow, this is incredible. There's such an opportunity. Everybody needs to be a part of this. And after we left that testimonial room and then the deposits needed to be put on these contracts, we tried and contacting the cousin. This guy disappeared. I don't know if he was a cousin or not. He was just a guy that was there as the cousin. And we realized everything we had been taught was wrong. Like we were being misled into being oversimplified. It was sketchy at best. And it was really crazy because, I really got sold into the program and I was like, wow, you can really line up the right influence triggers to get people to make big decisions. And, it's funny because at some point I'm like, wow, this is one of the worst things that happened to me. I had to figure everything out. I had to relearn. I basically got thrown so deep into the ocean that I had to be forced to swim back. And, in hindsight, I can choose to look at that scenario and I'm like, wow, that was my greatest growth opportunity because I went to relearn everything. I had to go find the money and I made a lot of sales happen. But through that experience is kind of where I found a bigger reason as to why I get excited about teaching sales is that I'm tired of seeing douchebag marketers and salespeople take advantage of others. Like that became one of the big whys is if I teach the good people how to sell ethically and the power that comes with sales, and they have great products, great offers, and now they have the tools necessary to be able to get people to take action that is in their best interest, that will make it so there's no marketplace for this manipulation, for this scam to even exist. And so, yeah, that's more of a individual story of how I got very passionate about sales that came from the other side of the spectrum. But I'd be lying to you, as you know, that going into sales directly is not all sunshines and rainbows. But I think if you come at it with the right heart, there's a lot of obstacles you can overcome.
Wow, what an origin story, man. Thank you. So now you're in it. You're through it. You're making the decision to be in the sales profession and do it with love, but more importantly with ethics and with morality and doing it the right way and setting the standard. So now you've worked with $1 million launches, right? You've huge campaigns, at Mind Valley, for instance, right? So what were some of those high pressure moments in your early journey that you had to go through that, really was that time to shape your way of being where you are today?
Well, I'll say something that might be very practical for anybody listening, where we're seeing it more amplified today with the age of AI, where there's a lot of tools that exist to automate a lot of your process. There's a lot of ways for you to gather data, look at spreadsheets, and make some calculated decisions, especially if you're doing sales at scale. Data points matter because if you can optimize things a little bit and that percentage goes up by 10%, that's a huge revenue at the end of the day. But as an individual salesperson here, I what I knew was most important in one of the launches was that I had to understand why the hell people are even buying this. And I think, I was talking to other launch managers there and they were like, yeah, we send a survey to an email list and then we get some data and we'll refine our message based on the results we get from that survey. And I'm like, yeah, it's good. We're going to do that. But I started thinking, I like if I want to connect to someone's soul, which I know is a weird word to talk about sales, but let's go with it. I was like, I want to talk to the person's like sole reason why they make a buying decision, because every buying decision comes with an emotion that comes from some place. I can get some information from that spreadsheet, but I need to connect to a person one to one. And one of the most powerful activities I'd done that kind of embodies what I teach is I grabbed an NPS score survey that we had from all the past clients. This is Net Promoter Score. And it's kind of one of those standard surveys, which is like, would you recommend this to friends and family? And if it's an 8 or above, it basically means that person's going to be a promoter for your product. So I segmented the survey data to find all the people who were promoters, and I sent them an email to book a call with me because I wanted to know who were these individuals on the other side. And what happened after doing that was so rich for my sales conversation and marketing material that we created that it really made me care so much more about every sale I could make. Chuck was one of the guys I talked to. Chuck was like, wow, I bought this program and it completely changed his life. Started getting off medication. His psychologist was like, wow, you're actually making progress now. And he really attributed a lot of the product that he had bought to giving those changes in his life. This other lady, God, what was her? It wasn't Barbara. It was, I forget her name. And that breaks my heart because she had a great story of her and her daughter. Basically, she had bought this program. She wanted to reconnect with her daughter, who was like in her early 20s. And they were kind of a bit estranged, but she had a lot of forgiveness practices. It was a personal growth product. But by going through it, she ended up reconnecting with her daughter, going through the program with her daughter, and they kind of started forming bonds again. And it even helped her in her small business to just feel more joy and have more sales in the process. So I went like after I spoke to these individuals and I knew who they were on a one-to-one basis, I was like, man, do I put in the extra hour? Do I do the extra calls? Do I take the extra steps to refine the script? Because I know that if I'm going to be like mailing 500,000 people and then I get to have a couple of them show up on a webinar and I get to convert a few of them, like every single effort extra that I make is another story I could create of someone that's going through a problem that'll find a solution. And that requires you to care. And that extra level of care from connecting from individuals who had success with the product just turbocharged my motivation for every step of the process. So I think for me, when you start realizing that if you find yourself that you're talking to leads, you're talking to numbers, you've completely depersonalized your experience in the sales process, you'll probably see your statistics go down and you'll need to kind of hit a reset. And my best recommendation is go talk to some past clients, go check in on them, talk to them and hear their success stories. Man, that just motivates you to get back on the phones and realize you're creating more of them for the future.
Yeah,
I love that. And following up on that, do you believe that a salesperson has to believe in the product that they sell in order for them to be successful at selling it?
Yes, but not not assume that they are the client. I think that's the biggest mistake I see is like if you're going to be working, say, at a Lamborghini dealership, but you can't afford a Corolla because you had the start of your career, and somebody walks in and you're trying to sell to them like you would be speaking to you as the avatar, and you're like, hey, man, I don't know if you really should buy this Lamborghini. You could probably get a BMW that's a quarter of the price and has the same features. It's probably the same engine, anyways. Like, you're not even putting yourself in the shoes. And I think that's one of the most selfish things you can do as a salesperson is assume that the potential buyer is you. That's being lazy. And matter of fact, pulling on that same story is one of the reasons that I went to speak to those clients because it was an energy clearing product. And I went to experience the product and I was like, what the hell is this? This feels way too woo woo for me. And I was like, wait, hold on. It's not about me. It's about the people I'm selling to. And that's why it's so critical to go reconnect with these people. So, yes, you need to believe not in the fact that the product could do a wonders for you, but believe in the impact it's going to make for the people you sell to. Like doing that is going to be better than any other little optimization trick you do because your conversion rate will be night and day. It's a binary thing energetically.
That is single-handedly the best answer I've ever heard of that question. Seriously, like a lot of people just mess that one up, but you nailed it. That's exactly, it resonates with me 100%. Um, Personal development, right? In my beginning stages, I didn't have success stories in my family, in my circle of five that were entrepreneurial, business owners, salespeople. I had to go seek that out through personal development. And I had a mentor of mine who said to me, like, the most important investment is not the stock market, not a company, it's your personal development. And so I truly believe that's why I was able to do the things I've been able to do over the last 2 decades. You are, significant in that as well. And so, I mean, you had, Alex Ramosi, you've shared stage with Gary Vaynerchuk, you've had Brian Tracy, the legend, on your show twice. So I know how important it is to you, but I also know that there is more personal development available and more free training available and more books available in the sales and go-to-market space than any other industry. Yet there's no schools for it, right? You can't go to college for it, yet there's more available to people to learn and read and content available than any other space. So walk me through two part is like, where do people go? And how did personal development shape your success to be to where you are today?
Yeah. Well, what's very interesting is that sales has a major anybody who's in sales has a major advantage over somebody working a 9 to 5 job when it comes to understanding the value of personal growth. And that's because the time between getting the fruits of your labor and the efforts you've put in is so much shorter in sales than any other industry. Like delayed gratification is already a tough thing to deal with, right? Because there's so many things attracting our attention. Like you could go study personal growth, but that cat video is awesome, right? So like, do I want to giggle? Do I want to go play games? Or do I want to spend time learning about something that might require more attention, might feel a little awkward to do? Maybe you don't even want to talk to your friends about the fact that you're going to study these kinds of personal growth books. And if you're working a regular 9 to 5 type of job, the thing is you will find some micro wins into doing that, but it's going to be hard to measure. Like you might be finding yourself preferred in a promotion in a year from now, but can you really attribute it to the fact that you took that personal growth course? Sales has a major advantage because you will be evaluated for your sales performance weekly, monthly, daily. And then you start going through one personal growth course, and then suddenly you feel you're light on your feet. You're feeling enthusiastic. You have motivation. You're picking up the phone a little more. You're writing a few more emails. You're hesitating less. And you're coming home. You got more energy. And then suddenly your paycheck reflects that immediately. And so that's the cheat code for why so many people in sales that do well embrace personal growth, because they see the results so quick. And so I think we're very lucky in this industry. And now you have more available material than ever. Podcasts, books, courses, all that stuff. I don't think it needs to be put through any kind of university, because we need to self-select to really put this into practice. And there's I don't know how to flesh this idea out yet, so maybe you guys can help me too. But it's great that all this information is available, but sometimes to truly get the application of the message, there needs to be some emotional interaction with the material, which is why I'm seeing a renaissance for people to truly go through events, experiences, something that truly makes an emotion. Because information just read, like you can chat GPT, like, what's the best way for me to close? And you can read it and be like, got it, but that doesn't sink in. But somebody will go to some Tony Robbins seminar and just like feel some personal growth wave, and then like for the next 2 weeks you're just on fire. That made a big effect. Does it last? No. But does it make an effect immediately? Yes. And now people kind of find themselves continuously going into these enhanced experiences because they can see the results pretty quickly. So yeah, it's great that the information is there, but there still needs to be some sort of like, you got to play with the information more than just consume it.
Yeah, definitely. I always see it debated on LinkedIn, the hardest part about sales that people are not prepared for at all. What do you think that is?
Well, I make a joke for most of my students and people that come to learn from me is every time I do webinars or I do events, I'm like, all right, first off, I just want to recognize those that have probably been underappreciated throughout their adult life. Where are all my A students? Those of you who had good grades in school. And then they're all like, finally, I worked so hard to get an A. Nobody cared when I get to work. Now this guy gets on stage and asks for A people. Here I am. And now that's like, okay, great. Now let me tell you a hard truth about sales is that your best result might be a 30% success rate with qualified leads, which means in the times that you fail, you're still doing really good. And so you are actually disadvantaged. So then they feel they got tricked, obviously, because now they thought they were celebrated. But rather, when you're used to being a high performer and that when you do good work, you get, 100% grade, 90% grade. You get into sales and you're realizing it's flipped and maybe you're getting 10, 20%, depending on like where you sit in the sales funnel. Like it's never going to be, if you like, I laugh when I hear a salesperson saying like, you know what, I close 80% of my leads. And I'm like, well, yeah, if you're talking to the most qualified leads in the most bottom part of the funnel. So like calm down and, that it's like even someone's just shouting the closing statistics means nothing because you don't know which part of the qualification. There's so much at play and it's just a vanity metric. But nonetheless, if you're going to be in a sales role, you're going to be failing more often than succeeding in most positions you're going to be in. And realizing that that's okay and part of the process is probably the hardest thing for people to grasp. And I was talking to Robert, God, the art of sales. Sales mastery. God, I'm so disappointed because he's a sales legend from like the 70s, 80s, and I'll have to maybe look it up by the end. But he gave a tool on my show that is such a great reframing for this. Is that he was dealing with like a 20% close rate for say $1,000 sale, and the way that he was able to navigate the rejection overhype is just that, hey, you got to take your close rate divided by the average sales value. It's $200 if it's a 20% sale. So you know that every call you make is worth $200. So whether they say yes or no, now it doesn't matter. You just know every time you pick up the phone and get on that appointment, $200 is in the door. And now you got to keep motivated, keep repeating, and put in the numbers. And then when you hear sales is a numbers game, like it's so dehumanizing, but there's truth to that because you just need to go out there and be in front of more people. And another thing to remind yourself is that, okay, let's say on a spectrum, you got 10 people that you're going to speak to. Be okay with realizing that maybe 3 of them are ready to buy now. Maybe 2 of them will never buy from you, and maybe 5 of them will buy in a year, 2 years, but every conversation is going to be valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the math of sales, right? The numbers game, the law of averages. it's all there. But at the end of the day, you just said something I want to kind of touch on is like it's sometimes dehumanizing, but it's all in the data. So it's funny, I see a lot of introverts and that are highly analytical people still shine really, really well in sales, especially inside sales. And I did a blog about this a few months ago. It's like you don't have to be an extrovert to be a good seller. You don't have to be outgoing people person, chatty and talkative to be a good seller. It's those introverts that are those analyticals that use the data as, proof to just go out and put in the numbers and they can see dramatic results as well. I mean, you've coached thousands, right? So is there a specific profile in person, or you feel more like me where, anyone from any personal dynamic or persona could come in and still make a massive impact in their sales career?
It's something I've been beating the drum a lot on because I think I did a disservice to a lot of my students at some point because I'd love to do pitch hacking.
Okay.
And basically, people would pitch me, and I did this in Malaysia. I went to these like startup incubators, and they'd go there and they'd pitch, and I'd be like, "Great, that was pretty average. Let me show you a real good pitch." And then I would pitch it, and then people would applause, and they'd be like, "Wow, that was amazing." And quite frankly, it pretty much boosted my ego, but probably didn't help them that much. And the reason is because the way I pitch is the Jason Marc Campbell way of pitching, and it works for me. And I think that everybody has their own unique sales style. And especially when you speak about like introvertedness is used as an excuse for sales performance, when I think is actually the superpower. Um, Most people don't want to be sold to by someone who's not listening to them, talking too much, ignoring. And I'm not saying all extroverts do that, but you definitely have much more of a tendency to bury your prospect with over talking. And, we hear the fundamentals in sales that are kind of just spit and may not give it the attention that it should receive. The things such as like, we have two ears, one mouth. Why? Because we should be listening more than speaking. And you start realizing that a lot of these sales fundamentals, especially when you start dealing with B2B, high account management, relational sales, consultative sales, which is basically going to be the type of sales that are going to thrive in the next coming years, right? An introvert is so well qualified to do that. And I find that just hiding behind a personality profile for your sales performance is a bit of a cop out. I think it's just like, hey, if you care about the results you want to bring in, find your style and realize that there's a whole lot of like, okay, say introverts is like, yeah, I can't sell to these high energy extroverts, but do you think every buyer is a high energy extrovert? Or is it possible that a lot of the people you're trying to sell to are introverted themselves and will prefer dealing with someone that they can relate to, connect with? And so, like, there's a lot of different personalities of people to buy from. And I think if you are someone that's, you know, more on the introverted side of the scale, you can do very well, probably even better.
That's awesome. And I know you've mentioned freedom and success looks different for everybody. What does that look like for you today?
Peace, harmony are big values that I appreciate. And I'm very young, but I'm not in my 20s anymore. And I've worked for organizations like Mind Valley, where it was like we're going to be impacting 1 billion lives. We need to raise the consciousness of the planet. And God, I love working for like extremely powerful culture companies. And you start drinking the Kool-Aid. It's super fun, man. I did some incredible stuff. It was lovely, but it's very interesting because Mind Valley has a ton of people that have moved on from Mind Valley, and a lot of them end up seeing a psychiatrist after working for a company like Mind Valley because they can't establish a sense of purpose that matches the energy and purpose that you had fueled by a mission driven company. And I would assume that for anybody who's kind of in the Silicon Valley tech field where it's like this new tech platform is revolutionizing, we're changing lives, and you're in that momentum, you can start sacrificing a lot of other areas of your life for the sake of it. And, I'm at a point now where I love the impact that I do, but I also love my peace. I love the harmony. I love my balance in my life. I love my relationship. I love my health. I love my career, but it's only one of the elements of my life. And so to me, this is the things that I'm striving a lot for. And I optimize my lifestyle to bring those into my life. So right now, as I'm talking to you, I'm actually I'm visiting family out in Canada, but I live in Bali. I have a little dog, little cat. getting married, and I still get to do my work with incredible people around the world from this studio that I set up. And it's a good life. I like it. And so that to me is very nice.
That's awesome. So let's go tactical for a second because we have a group of audience members that are these founder-led sales, these grassroots, bootstrap founders bringing things to market. You were just talking about Silicon Valley and how some, CEOs or founders bring things to market. What's your advice when it comes to founder-led sales? And where do you see even the introverts, maybe the software developers who they're not salespeople, let's say, but where do you see them being successful in bringing their new product, new service, new offering to market in the sales capacity? How would you advise them?
So a couple things come to mind. One of them is that nobody cares as much about your product and people having success with your products as much as the founder should. Like, if you've decided to build a company around this product that you've created, I would make sure that you remember that the most important thing your product does is a difference in the lives of the people that use it. Um, I maybe would even give a warning saying, like, remember that the product isn't, uh, don't be too focused on the product where you forget about the people. Like, in my model of selling with love, it was very interesting because when I first started working on this model, I had a loving the product was quite a high priority into the loves you should have around selling. And through conversations with someone I respected, his name Tucker Max, he was an editor and he was feedbacking the idea and he invested in a lot of startups as well. And his number one thing he would see is people so obsessed with the product, they didn't care about the people using it. They just wanted to jam pack it with features that they were excited about, which kind of comes back to what we were talking about earlier, which is like, you're not the buyer. So make sure you care enough about who is the buyer and design a product that works for them.
Right.
So in that little kind of discussion, what I've made sure that is the number one thing people fall in love with is the impact that their product makes, the difference it makes, and loving the people that are using it and the difference it makes in their lives. So that would be probably my first key here would just be like, hey, make sure that you never, stop focused on the impact it makes before the product, because the product might have to change if it's not making the difference that people need to have in their lives to actually get some transformation. If we're going into more some like tactical stuff here, it's just that I think it's very easy for someone who's not salesy to want to hire the salesperson as soon as possible. But I would warn towards giving up responsibility. Just hiring someone, expecting them to take care of all your sales is probably a very dangerous and vulnerable place to put yourself in. But understanding that you can have somebody that can take care of a lot of the, repetitive high volume activities that you might not enjoy. And it's almost, at a point where, a sales rep might get an SDR to book the appointments. You're probably going to find yourself wanting to find salespeople that's taking care of some of the lower yield, lower value activities. But never forget that in the beginning stages as the founder, people will buy more when they get to speak with the founder, be closed by the founder. You're going to speak about it in a way that's just much more close to the product. And you don't want to disconnect yourself from the buyer too fast. Like, some of the best companies I see happen is you'll see the CEO will go back and check what's happening on customer support, walk the streets, talk to the clients. Like, because if you start becoming someone in their ivory tower, their product tower, and you stop connecting with the people that are actually buying the product, you'll end up designing the next product that flops because you didn't even decide to care about who are the people that are actually buying it. So stay close to the buyer. The closest you can stay to the buyer, the faster you'll be able to modify the features and address the things that people care about. And I think that's what makes very lean and effective businesses.
Amazing.
Agreed. And I know Gabe mentioned before, there's so many trends, tools, tactics flying around. How do you stay grounded, sharp, and human? And where are you looking for advice to keep moving forward?
I need to breathe and I need to give myself 2 weeks. Here's what I love those tools so much. Like, I'm someone who's obsessed with like marketing automation, sales automation. Uh, I want to use them all, but I know that I know myself very well and I need to schedule whatever I get excited about. I have to give myself 2 weeks. So I remember 11 Labs came up with this thing that would like create some, like I could do an entire course with my AI speaking with my picture. I was like, let's build an entire course. It'd be great. I've got, okay, schedule this 2 weeks, whatever that idea was. 2 weeks is my cool down period. And if it's still as relevant in 2 weeks, then we do something. And 2 weeks later is be like, that's kind of cringe, creepy. Let's not do that. But it seems so exciting. So know yourself and know that everything is going to sound pretty damn exciting when you first hear about it. I think a 2 weeks is a good cool down period to just see, is it still relevant there? Because we're very emotional creatures, as much as we like to call ourselves rational people. So that's tip one. Does that mean I do not touch? And no, there's tons of technology I use. Like, for example, I see, as we're recording this podcast, for anybody who's in that space, I see you're using Riverside, and you're going to see your show notes gets created, bullet points. You can cut and edit. You can sound normalize. Like, that's amazing. It cuts down your production time so good. When it comes to like leads that you're trying to do business with, you can use AI and pull up all the research. And that's been the biggest trend I'm seeing, where maybe a year ago people were like, do everything automated, replace yourself with AI. And the one thing that people are always sticking with now are saying, like, you know what? AI is pretty good for research. Like, that's been the safe retreat position that everybody goes to when it comes to AI. And they're correct. But God, there's so much nice stuff you can do. I had one client, I could do a full business audit. I could find a ton of information, synthesize it. I love meeting. Like, if you're having a bunch of meetings with a lot of decision makers, you can pull all of those notes together, start seeing, is there any trend? Is there something I'm missing? Are there other powerful questions I can ask? It's amazing. And so I very much love using the raw AI tools to help me massage any abundance of information that comes in a complex sale, and that usually yields pretty cool fruit.
Yeah, so let's unpack that just a little bit, because you're bringing up AI, and you're right. Research is their go-to response, and then maybe it's because they don't know, or because that's all they've used. But you're staying ahead of the curve at all times. You're definitely understanding the tech stack that is needed in the sales space. So how are you seeing AI shaping the sales process, and what do you think, most importantly, reps right now need to be leaning in on in 2025, 2026 in regards to AI?
There's gonna be a there's gonna be like an anti-AI like pushback. I think there's gonna be a lot of people, the moment they see that chat box on a website and they see it's powered by AI, will have an immediate cringe. Um, and so I think you'll want to be aware of that. And God, it's almost like you need to, with the volume we have. And there's so many unqualified leads that might end up on your platforms that you do need a small little filtering process. What I will say is, with these tools, we start having, you're able to do some pretty cool stuff pretty fast now. And I think one of the things I might encourage any rep to do is to get comfortable on a camera. I know it doesn't seem to related with AI, but with text being a lot more automatable and systemized, people are going to be like, oh yeah, I never know if it's a real rep on the other side. If I see text, if I receive an email, it's probably an AI generated message. Even the voice is pretty easy to replicate. The video is going to be a little harder, although that's also getting pretty damn good. But if you're able to be a face that can speak, and production is there's gonna be this like return to basics, where you can just take your phone and just like send some informal video, just saying like, hey, I just sending you this so I'm this human, and wanted to follow up with you. I know I sent you a proposal last week, but I'm hoping you're doing well, and I want to make sure that if you had any questions, we can clarify that on a quick call. You can send me a voice note, but I'm here for you. That humanity aspect on working the leads that are maybe further down your sales funnel, that are qualified, I would say you're going to want to spend a whole lot more time there and being much more personal. And I think that's where you're going to see the biggest yields. AI and all that stuff is going to be great at just bringing you more and more qualified leads, but you'll need to become much more personal with the leads that are filtered and qualified with you.
Awesome. And you've been so amazing on the show. Learned so much from you in this time. So thank you very much. Who is the best person that should reach out to you, and where should they contact you?
Yeah, I mean, I think Instagram is the number one place that I hang out. Like, I put all the clips from my shows. I interact with anybody that messages me. So you can always message me there. Just Jason Marc Campbell. Go to YouTube, listen to the podcast, see if there's anything that resonates with you. And LinkedIn is a platform I should probably spend more time with, but probably in alignment with my desire for peace. I just haven't got myself into it too much because it does sometimes get overwhelming. But anybody who sends a connection request and adds a note, I will personally connect with and make sure that we get to have a conversation.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jason. We look forward to checking you out even more and getting to chill out. And you're the man.
All right. Appreciate it, guys. It was a pleasure.